There's live cast and podcast, live stream and podcast. Both the streaming and the casting are live and on the pod. Hi, it is January 23rd, 2023. I am Aaron Schatz, editor-in-chief of Football Outsiders, not joined by Mike Tenier, who is dealing with a family veterinary emergency. So we've got Bryan Knowles here to riff on what we were just laughing about was not the most exciting divisional round of all time.
No, it's a bit of a come down after a really interesting wildcard round. And of course, last year's divisional round, which was the most interesting divisional round of all time. We had three kind of not particularly close games, and one game that wasn't as close as maybe the score finally indicated, but we'll get through them.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing, right? We ended up with the right teams for the most part. There were 6 teams this year that were clearly better than everyone else. And we wanted to make sure that in our Final Four, we ended up with 4 of those 6 teams. And we did. There's no Buffalo and there's no Dallas. But 4 of the top 5 teams in DVOA from this season made it to the Final Four, which is very nice. These are the teams that were really good all year, and these are the teams that are going to decide it at the end. So hopefully the conference championships and the Super Bowl will be a lot more exciting than the divisional round was. By standard deviation of the regular season DVOA for the Final Four, this is the closest Final Four since 1998.
The betting odds are hilarious as well right now. If you look at the odds to win the Super Bowl in Vegas, it's basically Vegas is just shrugged. All 4 teams are about at plus 250. I think it's 250, 260, 270, 280 for the 4 teams. Like somebody's going to win, probably.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, we have it like we have our numbers like the 49ers so much. We have the NFC teams a little bit ahead of the AFC teams, but for the most part, yeah. Like it's, the playoff odds we have the Bengals last, and it has them winning the Super Bowl 22% of the time.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to find out because there really isn't a favorite. I
was told that's massive disrespect for the Bengals.
Oh, yeah. 22.
Which I think the difference between every team is equal and 22%, 25 and 22 is not a very big difference.
Plus, like no stat is accurate enough to tell them between 25 and 24. It's like we're saying they're all about equal. They're all
they're all about equal.
Yeah.
Don't forget, you can ask us questions if you're watching live on Twitch or YouTube. We'd love to hear your thoughts about this weekend's games. Let's go through them, starting with Kansas City 27, Jacksonville 20. And obviously, look, the big deal here is the Mahomes injury.
Yeah.
And Kansas City, he gutted it out. They got a good drive out of Chad Henne. And then Mahomes gutted it out in the second half. He moved around a lot less. He didn't throw deep. They abandoned play action, but he made it work. And they won. I mean, over an inferior team. Cincinnati is going to be a tougher out than Jacksonville was, certainly.
Yeah, I mean, the world is going to be a live camera pointed at Patrick Mahomes' ankle for the next 7 days. We all know how this is going to work. They're calling it a high ankle sprain. We don't know what grade or severity it is. Only 10% of players return to action, like with no the very next week with the separate high ankle sprain. Obviously, Mahomes is going to play. He's going to be, he's going to be on all the painkillers. He's going to be out there gutting through it. The big question for that game is how limited is he going to be, and we just have no way of knowing.
Yeah. I think the big thing, I mean, we'll talk more, we'll do a little bit more previewing later, but I think a big thing is so much of this game was taking advantage of how awful the Jaguars are against tight ends.
Yeah.
And that Mahomes didn't have to throw deep because he had Kelsey short like over and over and over again. The fourth quarter drive where they scored the touchdown, 2 passes to Kelsey and then a Kadarius Toney end around. And then a 6-yard pass to Marquez Valdez-Scantling. Like, he didn't have to throw deep. It was just Kelsey. Yeah. That's not going to happen against the Bengals. The Bengals are 5th against tight ends in DVOA.
They kept moving Kelsey all around all around the formation to take advantage of the matchups against anybody. Jacksonville didn't have anyone who could cover Kelsey, whether he was in lines out wide.
No, they tried Jenkins. They tried Aluakon. They tried Lloyd. They tried Andre Cisco.
They're just a massive talent disparity there. They just couldn't stop him. All the tight ends were the big story in all 4 games, but Kelsey, Kelsey's just on another level by himself, and the Jaguars couldn't do anything about it.
Yeah. So What were we going to say?
I also thought the Jags kind of played conservatively, weirdly conservatively considering they were the underdogs. They only took one deep shot at all in the first half, which was the 50-yard shot to Christian Kirk that he dropped. Like, I was expecting them to open it up more because, it's the Chiefs. They're going to score a bajillion million points on you. You have to kind of try to attack them more. And we didn't really see that until the fourth quarter.
They also used more JaMychal Hasty than they did Travis Etienne.
Yeah, I'm confused by their entire strategy coming into the game there. I don't think they played that badly. I think because when you consider the talent differential between the two teams, I just was expecting them to play more aggressively. Doug Peterson team was going to do that.
I think the Jaguars have a lot of promise for the future. I think Trevor Lawrence has a lot of promise for the future. This year, they're not one of the 4 best teams, so it's good that they're not in the conference championships.
But yeah, as a neutral observer, you'd much rather see the Chiefs gimpy ankle or not, but
everything is about the ankle, and I'm not going to tell you I'm a medical expert, and we're going to, you and I are going to write the previews for the conference championships, and you're going to do the NFC, I'll do the AFC, I figure, since you're San Francisco, which means I get to write about a matchup that may not exist, which is Cincinnati versus normal Mahomes, right? All I can really write about is normal Mahomes because I don't know what gimpy Mahomes look like. We only have one half of gimpy Mahomes that we've seen.
And
that's different. We shot it full of painkillers and he went back out there is different from he sat for a week and he practiced, but the sprain swelled over the course of the week, and then we shot him full of painkillers and sent him out. It's going to be different next Sunday than it was yesterday.
Absolutely. And, he's going to be playing. He probably wouldn't be playing in a regular situation, we would assume. How much is he getting out there before he's really ready? How much can he do? What areas of the Chiefs offense go away because he can't make the stretch plays without hopping on one foot? That was hard to watch, especially when he came in before they took him out, when he was just hobbling on one leg and hopping just to make the stretch handoffs kind of thing.
Yes, it was awful to watch. It was awful to watch. And we'll get to this, but I don't know. I'm pessimistic for the Chiefs.
Credit to the Chiefs medical staff for being willing to say, no, we have to take you out here and get you looked at here in the playoffs. Credit to Chad Henne for coming in. That 98-yard touchdown drive is the longest touchdown drive in Chiefs playoff history. I think overall they handled it about as well as they could. 5-10 years ago, you might have just seen Mahomes hobbling out there throughout the entire thing without even getting tested and checked. So credit to the Chiefs and the medical staff for saying, no, we have to actually get this looked. We can't wait till halftime. We have to look at you now.
Yep. They had to make sure it wasn't broken. I don't think you wanted him playing on it if it was broken.
Mahomes wanted to play on it no matter what it was, but overruled.
Philadelphia 38, New York Giants 7. I didn't write any notes down for this because this was an ass kicking that we knew one team was better than the other team. And I mean, I thought the Giants might cover. I thought Giants plus 8.5 was a good pick because of the possibility that it was going to be close. It was never close. This was an ass whooping of the highest degree. Philadelphia with 74% DVOA for the game. Everything worked.
Yeah, 6.1 yards per carry is going to win you most football games. They just kind of cut through the Giants like butter. I got a couple of notes down here. It's only the 6th time in playoff history where a team was down by at least 28 points and being shut out in halftime. The first half was they just swarmed over them. Third quarter, nothing really happened there, but just for those first 30 minutes, they just got blown off the field.
Yep. Eagles, the pass rush, the Eagles, the receivers, the Eagles, the running game, the Eagles offensive line. Listen, I mean, one of the things I said during the game, Dexter Lawrence is really good, but he is emblematic of the fact that one player does not make a defense. They are the worst run defense. He is really good against the run, and they are the worst run defense in the league despite that.
Yeah, and it really looked like that. The Eagles looked like they were over the first 15 weeks of the season. They were just going through everything works. Everything they called was perfect. I would say they did respect the Giants' pass rush. Jalen Hurts had a 2.41 seconds time to throw. That's the fastest of his career. And the second and third fastest times of his career were also against the 2022 Giants. This was a strategy We're going to get the ball out quickly, and then we're just going to win every single matchup, because once we get the ball out of the pocket, we have no worries.
Cincinnati 27, Buffalo 10. The most surprising result of the weekend, not because of who won, because before this game, certainly Mike and I and Kevin Cole on the show on Thursday were like, Buffalo may be number one, but this is the most likely underdog to win, right? Cincinnati was the best of the underdogs. They were the most likely underdog to win. I did not expect them to win in such dominating fashion.
Yeah, it was comfortable. Like, credit to the three backups on the on the Cincinnati offensive line who they looked fine.
Yeah, I think some of that was the snow. Yep. Pass rushers couldn't get their footing. But I think even accounting for that, you have to give them credit for playing, especially, by the way, run blocking. Carmen was making some holes in the run blocking.
Joe Mixon gained 2.6 yards before contact. 2 points. That the Bills didn't do that. The regular season, I think they were at like 0.8 or something like that. They were significant holes there. And
their defense was fantastic. Mm-hmm. You know, one of the problems I have with Lou Anarumo and the idea that he's the best defensive coordinator in the league or close to it, is that during the regular season, his defenses don't play like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like the overall performance of the Cincinnati defense was like 11th or something, like good, but not like super. I did go back and look. Like, they are better against top 10 quarterbacks than they are against everyone else, even after you adjust for opponent. If you look at DVOA, the average pass defense against top 10 passing games is minus 1.4. And their average pass defense against other passing games is plus 6.7.
That is a bizarre split.
Which is not as big as I expected it to be. But if you look at VOA, right, without the opponent adjustments, then of course they give up more to top 10 quarterbacks than they do to everyone else.
They're better.
Because everybody does, because they're top 10 quarterbacks. But once you adjust for the quarterbacks that they faced, they are better against top 10, relatively better than the rest of the league against top 10 quarterbacks, and relatively worse than the rest of the league against everyone else they play. And I don't quite get it, but here we go. Here's Mahomes. This is a top quarterback. This is a guy that I don't think they shut him down last year, but they shut him down for a half, right? They didn't shut him down earlier this year, right? The Cincinnati-Kansas City game earlier this year was a 3-point game where Kansas City missed a 55-yard field goal late. It was not a dominating Cincinnati victory, and they did not shut Mahomes down, but they slow him down better than most people do.
Yeah, no one shuts Patrick Mahomes down. The Bengals have managed it better than most other people. It's going to be very interesting to see them, was it the fourth time in 2 years? It's weird that they seem to have Kansas City's number to a certain extent at the very least. So they match up against them better than any of their other AFC opponents. It's weird when talking about the Chiefs having this hill to climb, this obstacle in their way. So, they're the ones with the Super Bowl win recently and everything like that. But it's been their obstacle.
The Bills, I think, are really disappointing. I'm disappointed in the coaching staff. I felt they were unprepared. I felt some of the fourth down decisions were really bad.
They were
some of the punting decisions were really bad. That defense is pretty good. Someone said to me on Twitter, aren't they an elite defense? Why do they keep failing in the playoffs? Well, they were the fourth best defense this year in a year that had no elite defenses. So they weren't an elite defense because nobody was.
And to be fair,
better than this, and this is 2 straight years against Cincinnati that they have folded.
Yes. And to be fair,
not Cincinnati last year. It was against Kansas City that they folded.
To be fair, Daquan Jones was out, and Jordan Phillips was playing with a torn rotator cuff. They had injuries, but again, they're playing against 3 backup offensive linemen. You would hope that you'd be able to dial up enough.
And the safety was a problem, right? Because Micah Hyde is out. That led to Hamlin. Hamlin was out. That led to Dean Marlowe. Dean Marlowe went out. That led to Jaquan Johnson, I think.
I believe that's who he went.
So they're on their 4th strong safety of the depth chart. That's not good.
And you mentioned the fourth down decisions. That was incredibly frustrating when we were in the Discord. Like it was, I kept running the numbers. Oh, that's about a 2% win probability loss. That punt's about a 2% loss. That's about a 2% loss over and over and over again. I think you could justify most of the punts on an individual basis. Like none of the punts was incredibly bad. We saw worse decisions on Sunday, but just over and over and over again, just draining the chances, like punting and kicking field goals. You have Josh Allen. Let him do Josh Allen-y things. You're behind. Let him make a huge play.
Jim Steckschulte wants to know, with Buffalo's offensive failures yesterday, how much is play calling an issue and how much is their inconsistent rushing game or something else? I don't know how inconsistent their running game is. They get runs. You know, they're reasonably efficient running the ball when they do. They just don't do it as much as other teams.
Yeah, they didn't get many yards against Cincinnati because it just wasn't part of their strategy.
Well, they fell behind also, so the run went away, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
it does feel like, as compared to the other top 5 DVOA teams, the Bills are more one-dimensional. Is a kind of unfair way to phrase it, but they have their style of playing, and they're going to do that way. Come, high water. They're gonna.
I mean, I'd have to go back and study it with people who know film better than I do, but it does seem like they kind of are always waiting for Josh Allen to do Josh Allen things instead of scheming guys open for him.
And that works most of the time, except when you question these other teams, which have other gears that they can go into. Like the Bengals have all those deep shots they run, but they also got 2.6 yards for contact. They
also have guys other than Stephon Diggs are very talented, but very inconsistent. Davis is very inconsistent, has drop problems. Isaiah McKenzie kills the Patriots, but doesn't seem to appear against anybody else. Cole Beasley is 97 years old.
Yep.
Shakir is 16 years old.
Exactly.
So, like the opposite, right? He's just really young and raw.
It feels like, I don't say the Bills have hit a plateau, but they need to add some other gear at some point here if they want.
And the problem is going to be, how are they going to do it? Because Diggs and Allen's cap numbers go way up for 2023. This was their best shot.
Yeah, the window's not closed. But this was one everything was building up to. With Josh Allen, the window is never going to be closed, but they do have to now try to figure out, okay, what's plan B when this doesn't work? Because I don't have a plan B.
I'll point out, I was bummed to see my preseason Super Bowl pick lose. And I'm bummed to see the number 1 team in DVOA lose. This has been a long string now where the number 1 team in DVOA doesn't actually win the Super Bowl very often. That being said, Buffalo was number 1, I will point out, in basically every metric out there. So Buffalo was number 1 in simple rating system from PFR. They were tied with Kansas City for number 1 in PFF's ELO rating. They were number 1 in ESPN's FPI. They were number 2 in Pythagorean wins behind San Francisco. They were number 2 in 538's ELO behind Kansas City.
Yeah.
But, I give all respect to Cincinnati. The randomness is part of what we love about sports. I don't think there was a metric that had Cincinnati as a better team than Buffalo going into that game. But when you play one game, sometimes one team just outplays and outcoaches the other.
Yeah.
And they really outcoached them.
Yeah. And especially as they keep expanding the playoffs, the odds that the top team in the regular season is going to win a Super Bowl will drop, just as there are more roadblocks, there are more stumbling blocks along the way, and the Bills stumbled.
It's a remarkable stat. 42 years we have DVOA numbers. There has never been a year where the top 4 teams were the final 4 teams.
So close this year. So close.
And there has never even been a year where the top 2 teams in each conference were the final 2 teams for that conference in both conferences. Right? Because obviously you could have a year where like the top 3 teams were all AFC teams, and therefore there's no way that the top 4 could be the final 4. But there's never been a year like that either. It's just there's always somebody who kind of breaks into the top 4. And this year it's Cincinnati.
And that's why we watch.
They really weren't that far away.
Yeah.
San Francisco 19, Dallas 12.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was one of the best low-scoring games I have ever seen.
Incredible defensive performance on both sides. This was Dan Quinn and DeMeco Ryans threw the kitchen sink at one another, and that the game we felt like it was it's one of the more tense games I think we've ever seen, because it's not like the offenses were bad. We were waiting for something to happen. It felt like there were all this potential energy was
There
built.
was a lot of talk about, the pass rush, the Dallas pass rush, the Dallas pass rush. They were really getting to Purdy. But I thought the Dallas coverage there were not 49ers running free all over the field the way there usually are. There were a couple of plays, like there was a Deebo Samuel one at one point where they caught him underneath and he got a bunch of yak, but there were not 49ers receivers running free all over the yard the way there usually were. I thought it wasn't just the pass rush. I thought the Dallas coverage was much better than I expected.
It was fantastic. And the Cowboys were getting pressure with 4, which allowed them to have all those other players back and took away everything. Yeah, it's not like Purdy was missing like wide open guys or anything. There just was nothing there.
And Purdy hit a couple of passes where those guys were covered. In a way that the week before against Seattle, he couldn't hit covered guys. He was only hitting guys that were wide open. He hit some guys in some smaller windows yesterday.
His numbers were worse on Sunday than they were the week before. I think he played better against the Cowboys. I agree. I think it's very impressive that he didn't do much against the pass rush, but he didn't do much against the pass rush negatively either. Only took 1 sack. Only took 2 sacks. Didn't throw any interceptions. Didn't even really throw many balls that could have been intercepted. There was that one tip drill against that bounced off like 3 players early, but. The Niners fans are so accustomed to, Jimmy Garoppolo's going to have 2 interceptions, and we're going to overcome that over the rest of the game. Purdy did not throw away the game, and I think that impressed me, because I was worried when the Cowboys pass rush, they're going to get 3 sacks, 3 interception game. They're just going to shut down the offense entirely, and they're going to win comfortably. That was the fear for 49ers fans coming in, and Purdy managed to not make the backbreaking play.
Yeah. Todd Singer says Brett Maher added to the tension. Yes, he did get both field goals. I do wonder if Dallas had pulled that game out, would a Brett Maher have been cut? Because he's made 12 straight field goals.
Yeah,
and he's got a long distance leg.
But that extra point going wide before it was blocked.
That extra point was not going through if it wasn't blocked. That extra point was going to be shanked by like 15 yards. That is just mental weirdness.
Before the game, he was missing kicks in both directions, and Jerry Jones came down and spoke to him on the field before the game started. I have never ever heard of an owner coming down here to talk to a struggling player of any description, much less the kicker, before a playoff game like that. It was crazy.
I know that Dak Prescott throws some interceptions that are bad.
Yes.
But the idea that he is the problem with the Cowboys, I think, is something that is said by people who think there are only 3 good quarterbacks in the world. Like Dak Prescott, yes, the Cowboys Twitter account was criticizing Dak Prescott after the game. Yes. I think they were trying to bring attention to the fact that he was self-deprecating. Like he himself said after the game that it was his fault. But that the first pick was like Michael Gallup just gave up on the route. Like I think it was really only the second pick that was really Prescott doing something crazy stupid.
The first pick wasn't great though, but yeah, usually your receiver is going to come back on that one, and at the very least, it's going to get he'll turn to the defensive back and knock it down, kind of thing. Gallup gave up on the play, and that's why it was so easily be intercepted.
Yeah. But I feel like Prescott is one of the top 7 or 8 quarterbacks in the league. Like, despite the picks. Josh Allen, the same thing, right? Despite the picks. He is one of the top 7 or 8 quarterbacks in the league. He might be one of the top 2 or 3 quarterbacks in the league. We can debate now Burrow versus Allen. Yeah. But if Allen is not second, he's third at this point. And yes, he throws some bad picks, and Prescott throws some bad picks. But I feel like the criticism, like Prescott is what's making the Cowboys good. He's the best thing about the Cowboys. Yeah. As good as their defense is, if they didn't have Prescott, Cooper Rush, I'm sorry, no, they're not getting this far.
Yeah. Something has to be done about the interceptions, but I think a lot of it is Prescott trying to make something happen with the Cowboys have one receiver. Letting Amari Cooper go was a disastrous decision for the Cowboys. Gallup
is still good.
He is, but Gallup is not going to win by himself. Gallup is going to, we're going to get some deep shots to him because he's going to step through people because everyone's focusing on CD Lamb. The lack of a standout second receiver, someone who can scheme up just for him, even if the top one isn't working, that hurt. Because it was all the big. I believe there were 20 completions, 10 of them went to Lamb, and the rest of the team had 61 yards combined receiving. It was not. Lamb was the only one there, and they got the one deep shot to him, and I never felt like, and as a 49ers fan, I was very tense, but I never felt like the Cowboys were going to win that game. Even it was close, even when they took the early lead. I never really felt like Dallas was going to. I never felt like the Niners were in trouble, which is
Yeah, I felt pretty good about them. Patrick Seeley points out Pollard getting hurt is understated. He was the third option. He's the third option in the passing game a lot of the time, which I think is true. It's interesting he has a broken leg.
Yeah.
So I wonder what that's going to mean for his free agency.
I wonder if Pollard was supposed to be the center on the brilliantly schemed up final play of the game where
they just bowled Ezekiel Elliott over and then they tossed it to Kevontae Turpin and the first defender just went. Can I say how happy I am about that? There has never been a year with as many of those crazy lateral fumble plays at the end of the game compared to 2022, right? Because I have to manually fix those in DVOA, and it's annoying. And there's never been a year with as many of them as this, and I'm so glad this was not another one. That is just selfishness on my part, but I'm just put it out there.
On the other side, I really wanted that play to work. I mean, even though I'm rooting for the team, I really wanted that play to work because we would see it forever.
It would have been really clever to be like, they did that so they wouldn't have to have offensive linemen on the field. But as Hitchhiker's Pie points out, they had other offensive linemen on the field. So what was weird? Why not? Okay, not the center, but it's not. Ezekiel Elliott did not snap badly.
Yeah. No, he just got bowled over immediately.
He just got bowled over afterwards. But he could have gotten up and participated in the play if the first guy they threw to. What was funniest about that play to me was the first guy they threw to immediately got tackled, and it's like, so much for the laterals, la la la.
Yeah, the entire right side of the offense didn't move because they were all the ineligible receivers. They would have been, it would have been a penalty if it. So like half the team was just standing there doing nothing. At least have them stand there in front of Dak Prescott, make people go around them to get to the quarterback. It just, man.
But I mean, I feel like the people making fun of that play today, the odds that any play would have worked there were tiny. So come on. I mean, give us comedy at least. It's not like Dallas was going to win on the Miami Miracle. The likelihood of that is very tiny. Also, San Francisco is better tackling than Rob Gronkowski was 4 years ago.
Yeah. No, if the name just escaped me, but if they had completed that pass, where the receiver just stepped out of bounds before completing the pass, then maybe Dalton Schultz had managed to stay in bounds on a play that I think 90% of tight ends managed to stay in bounds on, then maybe you have something there. But that in drivers. Yeah.
So the 49ers are way ahead of everyone else in weighted DVOA, right? They're at like 43%, and everyone else is at like 32%. Jim Steck-Schultz says, how likely was the Niners timeout to dump the idea of sit back and tackle in favor of aggressively attack? I mean, it doesn't. Yeah, I think last plays I shouldn't say they never scored. They did once, the Miami Miracle. They almost never scored.
I think it was more like, we just want to make sure we have this is a weird formation. We just want to make sure everyone's standing in the right place for this one. This is a little strange. Don't lose to weird things.
So, right now, with the weighted DVOA, let's talk a little about the NFC Championship game. We have San Francisco as the best team, and Philadelphia is the lowest of the remaining teams.
Some of that is the Gardner Minshew games, though.
If you take out the Gardner Minshew games, they're still the lowest of the remaining teams, but not by as much. Interestingly enough, if you take out the Gardner Minshew games, Philadelphia's passing rating actually goes down.
Really?
But their running rating goes way up.
Yeah, that does not surprise me.
Because Jalen Hurts opens things up for the running backs, right? You have to constantly worry about him running. It opens things up for the running game. Their running game is fantastic. Their weighted rushing without the Minshew games is 30.5%. The 49ers weighted run defense is minus 20.6. So this is strength against strength when Philadelphia runs the ball. Strength against strength with that pass rush against the offensive line of the Philadelphia Eagles. The other side, right? Great pass rush for the Eagles against a strong offensive line for the 49ers, although McGlinchey not as strong as Trent Williams.
No.
Um,
I'm really looking forward to Jalen Hurts versus Warner and Greenlaw in the middle. I think that is the most exciting.
Yeah, because Hurts was like terrible throwing to the middle last year.
Yeah,
much better throwing to the middle this year. And then you have to play Warner, and you have to play Warner and Greenlaw. That play where Warner carried the receiver up the seam was amazing.
That's why, we say that, don't pay off ball linebackers. You can pay off ball linebackers when they can cover like a cornerback on those deep routes. That was astounding.
49ers rookie quarterback against the sack leader. I mean, the thing is, there are reasons to believe the Dallas pass rush is better than the Philadelphia pass rush. So it's not all of a sudden like, okay, now Purdy has to face an even harder pass rush. It's like he has to face another really hard pass rush.
Yeah, they're different. I mean, Dan Quinn gets a lot of his pressure by taking his 4 guys and moving them all over the place. And they challenge Purdy by saying, we're going to give you all these weird looks and you're going to see if you can recognize them before the snap, rookie. See what you can do. The Eagles just have great pass rushers everywhere. And you have no idea who's going to come.
They constantly cycle them in, right?
Exactly.
One guy comes out, another guy goes in. Brandon Graham comes out, Hassan Reddick comes in.
It's going to be less schematically confusing, like for Purdy, but it's just going to have fresh body after fresh body after fresh body coming after him. That's going to be very, very interesting. That's the Eagles are great. The Eagles are great. The Eagles could absolutely win this game. The Eagles are favored by Vegas. It's going to be really exciting.
I mean, our number like San Francisco. There has never been a rookie quarterback starting in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, he's only the 5th or 6th rookie quarterback to even reach this point. This is hard. Sean King, Ben Roethlisberger, Joe Flacco, Mark Sanchez, maybe Dieter Brock if you ignore the CFL existing. But
I don't ignore the CFL. I do not count Dieter Brock as a rookie.
Yeah. So in that case, rookie quarterback to reach this far.
So it's I mean, again, both of these games look really close. Mm-hmm. I feel like San Francisco has been so good at everything for the last 2 or 3 months.
I feel like the 49ers have. We were talking about the Bills having one dimension. The Niners have a lot of different gears because, against the Cowboys, both Deebo Samuel and Christian McCaffrey didn't have great days. So it was George Kittle who made the big plays on the drives that work. They have more guys they can turn to when something gets shut down. And the Eagles have struggled a little bit against running backs, and they've struggled a little bit against other wide receivers. So it feels like there will be options available. At the same time, the Eagles have had like one of the top pass rushes. They're going to challenge Purdy. Purdy has gotten to this point by not making mistakes under pressure. The Eagles are going to make him have to do it again.
Yes. And I was going to say something else, and I forget what it was. But it's a really good matchup.
It is. The last time Purdy and Jalen Hurts played, it was a really good matchup. They played in 2019 in college.
The other thing I'm going to say is that deep problem that the 49ers have, Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown, one of them has to be covered by Lenoir.
Yeah.
So if they can keep Hurts upright, he can find Devontae Smith deep. That is going to hurt.
It's going to happen. There's going to be at least one play that's going to gain like 50 yards to the air because, they have those holes deep in the secondary.
Do I think the Bears, 99 Aslan asks, do the Bears still miss Robbie good as gold? Yes.
Yeah. I somehow I don't think that was the difference in the Bears season this year, but yeah.
But he's good. He's a good kicker, right? But I mean, the fact is, the line of good kickers is like it's very shallow line, and then you get to Justin Tucker, and then he's so much better than the rest of them. So right now, I mean, I would pick the 49ers.
I would take the Niners in the points. I am not yet. I have not. This is to me. It's incredibly close. This game. I think this game is going to be very close. I know Wade DeVere loves the 49ers. Eagles were the best team in the league for the first 15 weeks of the season, and then Hurts got hurt. And I was waiting to see that divisional round. I wanted to see if it looked like, the September through November Eagles, and they did. They did against the Giants, so I understand that you had to adjust for the fact that the Giants were not a very good team this year. But, I want to see how healthy Hurts was. Hurts looked mostly healthy. He did tried to avoid some big hits in the first quarter where maybe, normally he would try to take those. But he looked mostly good. They look like they are in the form they were when they were the best team in the league in the first half of the season.
I'll point out what Eric Eager said on Twitter, which is because of the NFC, the way it went, with the Dallas having no Prescott in one game and then no Hurts in the other game when they played Philly, and the fact that these two teams haven't played each other yet, and we haven't really seen Philly against a great opponent. And the only great opponent we've really seen San Francisco against was Kansas City, who killed them.
Yes.
And Dallas last week.
Jalen Hurts has played 3 different teams in his career with 10 or more wins by the end of the season. One was the 2020 Saints, and they were starting Taysom Hill that game and none of Drew Brees. One was the 2022 Vikings, and we've said enough about the 2022 Vikings for multiple lifetimes. And the third were the Cowboys this year when they had Cooper Rush. And they have not played a team as good as the 49ers in Jalen Hurts' starting career. That's going to be very interesting.
Yeah. And Hitchhiker's Pie is right. Yes, technically Dieter Brock was a first-year quarterback. To me, your first year out of college is your rookie year, no matter what you're doing with it.
Absolutely.
Sorry. Yeah. If you're 31, you're not a rookie. You're a first year, whatever. It's not a rookie. Let's talk about the AFC Championship preview. I did point out that Cincinnati is 5th against tight ends, and when these teams played in Week 13, Kelsey only had 4 catches for 56 yards.
Yeah, that the Bengals match up really well against, because especially since Hill's gone, that it's very much been Travis Kelsey, and here's a smorgasbord of other guys who are going to get good in any particular game because Mahomes is going to find them. If Mahomes is banged up a little bit, that you think he's going to rely on his stars more, and he doesn't have that Tyreek Hill as the second deep shot guy.
Yeah. I'll also point out that injured Bengals offensive line, there's not going to be snow.
Yep.
I don't think.
Not in the forecast. We'll see what happens. But
the Chiefs' pass rush is only 15th in ESPN's pass rush win rate. It's not, other than Chris Jones, this is not a great pass rush. And Chris Jones will be going up against the healthy members of the offensive line, right? The left guard and the center are the healthy guys.
Exactly.
So I think Burrow will be able to get the ball out fast enough that I don't think the offensive line is going to be a huge big deal.
Yeah, it's a concern, but I think it's a concern they can deal with. I think that's probably the best way to put it.
Old Hetty 403 says, I would love to see the Bengals beat the Chiefs.
We've seen that.
I'd like to point out, I'd like to say officially on the record, I'm rooting for the Chiefs because I'm so offended by the Bengals' unbelievably stupid business about the refunds. I know the way football players like to hype themselves up, but that is just so stupid. Like this just in, they sell tickets to all the games a week ahead of time, even the games that aren't going to happen. That's how it works. It's so stupid. And what's worse is the fans talking about it, because I understand the players need to hype themselves up with nonsense, but the fans talking about it, it's so stupid. God,
they could have focused just on, they're making us go to Buffalo while they adjusted for everyone else. They could have focused on some actual, maybe legitimate grievances, how much we think they matter or not. But yeah, this was an invented story that they hyper fixated on. And
yes.
Before the game, after the game, they kept ragging out of the books you're going to the AFC Championship. It's fine.
Yes, that is why I am on the Chiefs. Not why I think the Chiefs will win. Why I'm rooting for the Chiefs to win, because the Bengals are dumbasses.
Yeah, I think I'm rooting for the Bengals because I just like seeing teams that haven't won win things yet. And
usually that's how I feel, but I'm very offended by this business of it. Cincinnati's defense looked elite, says Patrick Seeley. Well, I agree, they did. The problem I have with the Cincinnati defense is, why don't they look like that all the time?
They're not not dogging it against. It's not like we're going to save our good defensive plays for the big games. Very strange.
Right. how much will Cincinnati rely on the blitz to get quick pressure on Mahomes with limited mobility, or will they rush for and cover? See, that's an interesting question because normally the rule is you do not blitz Mahomes, but the big reason you don't blitz Mahomes is that he makes things up on the fly. If he can't make things up on the fly, do you now blitz Mahomes? That's an interesting question going into this game.
I think early on they're going to challenge and test him because they're going to try to see which is how much can you move. So I think we'll see more blitzing than normal in the first couple drives of the first quarter or so until the Bengals really know what Mahomes can do. Again, it's going to be the only thing people talk about all week. But that's like
Right.
what is Mahomes going to be able to do on a bad ankle?
I will say also the Bengals are a very efficient running team.
Mm-hmm.
Right? The Chiefs' run defense was not as bad as it has been in years past, but they're going to get some yards with Mixon on the ground in this game.
With a healthy Mahomes, I think the Chiefs win this by a touchdown, and they go to Super Bowl. I don't know. The Bengals match up against them so well.
I would pick the Bengals. I'm worried enough about the ankle. That is normally an injury that keeps guys out.
Yeah.
And I'm worried enough about the ankle that if you ask me who I think will win, I think it's close. But I think the Bengals look better for this game. I would be on the other side if it wasn't for the injury.
Yeah.
Jeremy Clark points out Kansas City does not have anyone outside of Kelsey who can win one-on-one matchups if Cincinnati blitzes. I don't think that's true because some of those one-on-one matchups will be against Eli Apple.
They don't have anyone maybe talented enough to quote unquote win someone, but Andy Reid's still really good. Andy Reid will find ways to get guys open.
The Cincinnati corners are not, with Noah Wuzier, the Cincinnati corners are not great. They'll shoot up his ankle with painkillers, but the question is how will it, how swelled up will it be? What happens over the course of a week? What is his mobility like?
Yeah.
The answer to that is we have no idea.
Again, the average recovery time for high ankle sprain is 4 weeks. He's coming back after 0 weeks, which is less than 4, numerically speaking. This is, he's in a regular season game, he would not be playing next week. I can almost guarantee that.
Yes. He would not be playing if it was a regular season game.
Yeah.
Unless it was like the last week of the season and they needed a win to make the playoffs.
Exactly. He is coming back before he quote unquote should because he's Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs need Patrick Mahomes to win football games.
So, I mean, these are very close games. And I'm on the 2 underdogs. I think are more likely to win, but it's very close. They're both very close. Hopefully the games themselves will be very close with lead changes and a lot of excitement.
I'm highly interested. These are because we have 4 of the top 5 teams in them, and these are matchups we would have picked before the playoffs if we could have picked them. I'm very excited for this. There are no surprise teams here. There are no desperate great story teams. These are 4 of the 5 best teams of football this year.
Again, I disagree. Patrick Seeley says the best 4 teams made it this year. I disagree. I think Buffalo was one of the best 4 teams in the league.
Yeah, but at the very least, 4 of the best 5 made it. I mean, I know
the best 5 made it. That I definitely agree with. Yes,
and that is always nice, and that's not a guarantee every season.
Yeah. All right. Don't forget to use our sponsors at Underdog Fantasy. If you play Underdog Fantasy with us, you can double your first deposit up to $100 with promo code OUTSIDERS. Best ball for baseball. It is best ball baseball season right now at Underdog Fantasy. But of course, you can also do pick'em games for the playoffs, picking each player's chances to go higher or lower than projected lines, even in states where traditional prop betting is not available. Underdog is the fastest growing fantasy site around. You can join the fun at underdogfantasy.com or download Underdog in the App Store and use promo code OUTSIDERS now to double your first deposit up to $100. Bills number 5. See, look, I think if you had asked people 2 days ago, are the Buffalo Bills one of the 4 best teams in the NFL? Everybody would have said yes. For people to say now the Bills were not one of the top 4 teams in the league this year is some serious 2020 hindsight. Like I said earlier, every metric had them 1 or 2 going into the playoffs.
Not the quarterback swag metrics.
But Why? No, again, I'm sorry, but they are number 2 in quarterback swag.
Nah.
They are number 2. Do you think Mahomes has more swag than Allen?
No, not at all.
I think Allen's got more swag. I mean, Burrow's got the most swag, but I think
No doubt.
Allen's like number 2 in swag.
Yeah,
So,
that seems fair. That seems fair.
so I think, but that's why you play the games, right? That's why, like we said, there's never been a year that the top 4 teams were the last 4 teams. That's why you play the game.
The streak continues.
Brian with shades on will soon be an emote on Twitch and Discord.
Just wait. If the Niners and Bengals beat in the Super Bowl, I will come on one of these podcasts and
We're gonna have you and
Huey
Rob
Lewis.
Weintraub on the show.
I will find some Huey Lewis in the news-esque 80s clothes here, and we will do this 80s style. Niners Bengals, baby.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining the show. Wednesday, the news show with Kale and Jackson at 1 p.m. Eastern, and then me and Mike, and I'm not sure who else, Thursday, to preview the conference championships. Until then, take care, everyone. Thanks for watching and listening.